Recently, you see things going on in the news. I understand that there's need to be cooperation when you're dealing with some of these major issues. And so at the beginning of last year, I called a special session of the Florida legislature so that we would be on the same page across jurisdictions with respect to the immigration interior enforcement. We obviously had 4 years, and we work with many of you to deal with the spillover from what was happening by the former President Biden opening the border and having 7 to 10 million people enter our country illegally from all over the world, no vetting, all this stuff. So it obviously created huge problems. The election in 24 was in large measure a referendum on that policy, and then with promises to shut it down and to reverse it. And so I knew when President Trump was taking office, you had to be on the same page. Now, we banned sanctuary cities my first year as governor. We did other things, to beef up the fight, removing incentives, like not allowing driver's licenses, all this stuff. And that's important. But in terms of enforcement, you had to work together. And so we called for reforms, and we had to fight fight over it, but we eventually got what was necessary. And there's a number of things that we did, but the most important thing that we did was just impose a very clear duty on all state and local law enforcement agencies that you have a responsibility to cooperate, the best of your ability with the Department of Homeland Security on interior enforcement. So Highway Patrol, you have a guy, trooper pulls someone over, they're here, they're driving drunk, they have no driver's license, they're not here legally. That's an easy thing to then make sure that DHS is able to do that. You have people that are convicted of criminal offenses who are here illegally. They come out of that prison. The only appropriate place at that point is DHS taking them out of this country, and you turn them over and do that. And so we've worked like that, and I think it's been very, very effective. We've done between state and local, and we're partnering with DHS on a lot of this. We've done about 20,000 apprehensions of people, of illegal aliens, just since probably last spring. And that's in addition to what DHS is doing on its own. And so that's the way you show cooperation. That's the way that you actually get the job done for the people that you represent. Now, what they're doing in these other states is basically it's a form of interposition. They are sanctuary jurisdictions openly, proudly, where they say, we are not going to cooperate with any type of immigration enforcement. And so what does that mean? Okay, like Minnesota, you have somebody in a jail or in prison and they're getting out. Why would you not honor a detainer request from the Department of Homeland Security to turn over the illegal criminal alien over to immigration so that they can be repatriated? But they don't do that. They don't help with data. They don't help with all these other things. And so it's almost like, you have an election, you debate these issues, the laws are on the books, and they just believe that they should be able to opt out of that and not be involved. And in fact, now it's being more than that. It's thwarting that. And you have really aggressive operations that are being done, funded in some of these cities to try to prevent the law enforcement from carrying out basically what the voters asked to do in the 2024 election and what federal law requires of them to do. And so that's created an environment where, if you work for the Department of Homeland Security, if you're an immigration officer, they're putting a target on your back. They're trying to put your likeness out. They want people to be able to come and target you. So they're creating this situation where just doing your job and just following law is very, very difficult because you have all this clutter and you have all this sand that's trying to be thrown in the gears. That is not appropriate for a state governor to be inciting, a mayor to be inciting. If you don't like the fact that we have immigration laws, then you should have done a better job when you were in power to try to convince the public that what you wanted to do is right. But what I see from some of those jurisdictions is basically a belief that there should be no real enforcement of immigration law, which means you have one president open the border, there's no way to unring that bell. You can violate the law, you can violate your oath of office, you can not take care that the laws are faithfully executed for 4 years, and then the American people can demand redress from that in an election, and then you're telling me that somehow that doesn't happen? So I think it's the lack of cooperation, that's causing a lot of friction. I think it's the fact that these politicians are intentionally trying to sabotage enforcement efforts, not even doing basic cooperation, which I think if you ask just someone, hey, do you think if someone comes to the country illegally, commits a crime, that after they've been punished that they should be turned over to immigration, or should they just be released on the street? I think most people would say they should be turned over and then sent back to their home country, but that's not what they're doing there. So we have shown the way on retail theft. We've shown the way on handling rogue prosecutors. We've shown the way on having strong laws that make sure people do the time if they did the crime. But we've also shown, how you can work with state, local, and federal, all pulling in the same direction and all getting the job done. And so what we were able to do in the first, it really isn't even a year, because by the time we got our special session done was sometime in February, I think, of last year. Obviously, DHS had to stand up stuff. So we really didn't, we did our 287G agreements at the state level. I know a lot of the sheriffs did it shortly thereafter. But, it wasn't even like we've been doing this for a full year. I mean, we probably started sometime in the spring in earnest, and you've basically had a clinic about how you can work together to be able to protect the public and to make sure that folks, particularly folks that are in our justice system, that they are turned over to the appropriate authorities and removed from our communities when they don't have a right to be here. That's not what you're seeing in some of these